Alright, so before we get into the next mission, I unfortunately have to go back and look at missions 3 and 4 again because I completely forgot to look at the war room for these missions. Fortunately, it's as simple as entering the mission, skipping past all of this, and just selecting war room on the menu screen here. Alright, so mission 3's war room. Let's see what they've got. To info and tactics. Yeah, who would drop by the war room for a tutorial mission, right? Like, we really need advice for this part of the game. Patience, Grasshopper. Thank you, Lynn. So what advice do they give for this mission? Yeah, it's so weird seeing Dark Conflict refer to the artillery as a mech gun. And I actually know that the unit names are going to get very interesting later on as well. But of course, the online communities, they basically settled for the US localizations names for units and COs. Even the European players, so that's nice. Alright, so that's Mission 3's War Room. Now let's look at Mission 4's War Room. Based on my rank, I could probably use some advice for this mission. Also, I've been told that it is in fact possible to save that infantry unit if you are extremely lucky, is the takeaway I got from it. So let's look at the tactics here. Ah, the Beast does this one. Yes, this is another thing. It's not always a protagonist character who does these war room sections. The enemy COs can do it too. The Beast is perfect for tactical advice. Yes. And of course, these war room sections are all non-canon, I guess. So what does he have to say? Wow, that's a horribly out-of-character line from Drakov just now. Don't move without thinking. That's not in character for the Beast at all. Oh, and there's an extra text box in Days of Ruin. That was basically just teaching us how Fog of War works. Like, we would have gotten that in the mission proper anyways. That was kind of weird, though, and it gets much, much weirder. So, with the housekeeping out of the way, let's move on to Mission 5. Basically the same title in both versions. I think I like the Dark Conflict one just a little bit better. So the location, I didn't check any of the location names. It's New Wolfington. New Wolfington? And in Dark Conflict, it's Latra City Industrial Zone. Okay. So I think it's New Wolfington because Brenner's battalion has a wolf thing going on. Brenner's wolves and all of that. So yeah, one thing I unfortunately don't have any access to is all the best character in the game. Well, second best. Oh, extra line. Dr. Moritz in Dark Conflict. Okay. Like, those are barely any different. Like, they're not that different names, but... yeah, I like the name in Days of Ruin better because it's a more normal name. Ah, the joke is more jokey in Days of Ruin. So yes, Dr. Morris's thing is that he likes to make jokes. Yeah, the differences in the number of dialogue boxes is throwing me off a little bit because I have to keep clicking with a touch screen. Ah, battle's starting up already. So now we have an actual production property. He doesn't make a joke in Dark Conflict! Oh, man. They downplayed the... Well, I guess you could say Days of Ruin upped the ante on the jokes in Days of Ruin, which I think was for the best. That's unfortunate. Oh, this is where they do like a stupid thing in order to explain why you can't take units from one map into the next. It's really silly. I think they do that at the end of the map. Yes, we have to rely on Captain Brenner because it's really the only choice they've got at this point. Alright, so can we get to the gameplay part? I'm eager for the tactics for this mission. Because if I am not mistaken... automated systems, etc. Alright, so they're going to teach us capturing as well. Alright, so this looks fairly basic. Like, we have not that many units, but of course we are... Oh, jeez. I got desynced again. Okay. So, of course, this is going to be the capture tutorial. I'll go ahead and start capturing the city too, and yeah, I think we could actually do a decent amount of damage with the units we already have out right now. So, if the cursor would stop desyncing. Alright, I've got an idea of how far I can move without getting hit. About there should be fine. Let's bring the artillery up too. I can pull back if I need to, it's no biggie. So yes, bikes are the big new unit in Days of Ruin. I should explain that they can move 5 spaces over roads and plains, which is... And because it's a separate unit, it's way faster than using an APC to carry your regular infantry or mechs. In fact, I would say that it almost completely obsoletes the APC, which changed a little bit in this game as well. But then again, you might still use APCs if you prefer using mechs instead of regular infantry, which can depend on the map, I suppose. Oh wow, he's actually being smart and staying out of my attack range. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the computer will do the same thing on both versions of the game. Oh, I see. In my Dark Conflict run, the recon has gone to a different position. That's going to cause some trouble. Maybe I really should just stick to playing one version at a time for the gameplay part of it. So they will limit us to only a few specific kinds of units. Well, if there was a way to get that mech off the factory right away, then we would be able to start producing right away, but there's really no way I can think of to do that. Because, see, you would need a... You can't fire on yourself, so you would need a non-combat function to get rid of it, and none of the non-combat damage that you can do throughout the series ever... It never, like, actually destroys a unit. Yeah, actually, if you use the super missile in Game Boy Wars 2, that does actually kill units. It's like a black bomb, but it can actually kill. Anyways, city's captured. So, how far can this tank go? Yeah, I better pull back. I don't want those tanks to hit me. The units have actually, like, they're diverging. But I think this is safe. I might get hit by the recon in Days of Ruin, but that's fine. You know, maybe I could keep up this play 2 games at the same time thing. Like, it might be funnier for you guys if something silly happens. Oh, they've got to teach us about repairing now, too. Have I gone into the war room yet? I don't think I have. Alright, now that things are actually starting to differ between the 2 games, I think I'm actually going to do the war room for this mission, and then play only one game at a time, because this is going to get real confusing if I try to play both. So Brenner takes care of this war room. Well, the battle's already started, so it's a little bit late. I wonder if that... You know, I actually don't know if these war rooms change depending on how far along in the mission you are. Because that would be weird if he says that at the end of the mission, like when you're 1 infantry away from blowing it up. Alright, so capture stuff, produce new units. You think? Lynn's horrible at speeches. I don't know what you're saying. Alright, so with that out of the way, I'm going to switch over to just playing Days of Ruin. Here we go. That works. Alright, so I'll just use the touchscreen and I'll play the other mission off screen and then get back to you with that when both missions are done. Alright. I'm just going to use the touchscreen to play this. This mech can't really do anything. Oh, there's dialogue for this. There's so much tutorial dialogue. See, oh, and it has to put up that little screen too. See, this is the thing. I don't really like it when the tutorials are like part of the campaign. Like, I would much rather they made some kind of, like, the field training in Advanced Wars 1 was all the tutorial you really need, in my opinion. But I think I've... Oh, that was very lucky. 42%, and I managed to take out a 6 HP unit. Very awesome. Right, so we only have units up to the regular tank. So we're going to build a bunch of those, I think. Regular tanks are basically going to get us through this. Yeah, that artillery is unfortunately not going to live much longer. Oops. Because putting it in that position wasn't such a good idea after all. So despite the fact that we have a factory and can produce as many units as we want, which the enemy doesn't have, so victory is basically guaranteed, they still promote keeping units alive because if you lose a unit, then all of its levels go away. A newly produced unit won't have the levels of a unit that's been on the battlefield for a while. This tank is definitely not going to live much longer, though. I wonder if the AI prioritizes capturing infantry, like in the GBA games. It looks like they do. The tank went for the capturing infantry, even though the recon would have been enough to, interrupt the cap. So, I think now's a pretty good time to talk a little about the scoring system for Days of Ruin, because it's different now from what it was in the GBA games. So speed is the same. Speed is determined entirely based on how many turns you took to clear the map. And power, it's a little different now, but I think the theme of destroy more units to get more power score still applies. Technique, I know for certain, is way different now, because in Days of Ruin, the technique score takes into account how many units you've built. Like, it will penalize you for building more units. If you spam lots of infantry at the end of maps, that will penalize you in Days of Ruin, whereas it would have increased your score in the other games. And I've gone over why I'm not a huge fan of the scoring being out of 450 points, even though you only need 300 points for an S rank. So I think I've got enough tanks. I'm going to lure in this enemy tank. So yes, they don't want you to spam units, and they still want you to preserve your units as much as possible. So it's probably a better scoring system aside from the fact that it's out of 450 points instead of 300. Because that's going to annoy the... Oh, I went for the recon instead of the tank. I got the two confused. I haven't played Days of Ruin in so long. Except for, like, trying to find some strategies for some of the single-player maps. The classic War Room mode, it doesn't exist in its traditional form. Like, I think after this mission, there is... I think you unlock one of the so-called trial maps after either this mission or the next one. Right. So I'm going to make the artillery weaker instead of outright blowing it up. And this recon has hit the max level. Alright, so that's going to end the Days of Ruin version of this map. I'm going to switch over to Dark Conflict and finish up the map in that version. So I will be right back. You're not going to see it until the end where I finish the map and the dialogue starts. So be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I actually noticed another difference between the two games, if you can believe it. So, as you can see on Days of Ruin, I got a recon up to the max level, and you see a little V icon. That indicates a veteran unit, which is the maximum level in this game. But over on Dark Conflict, you can see that I have an infantry that has reached the max level, and it just says A instead of a V, which I can only imagine means advanced. It is Advanced Wars, even though it's no longer on the Game Boy Advance. But then again, in Japan, like, the DS games are still called Famicom Wars. Alright, so let's finish up these maps. Yep, there's still a couple more maps with the Beast. I'm spoiling that right away. Oh yes, this is the line that I was talking about again. Automated units only function near the factory where they were made. And on Dark Conflict it says the units can only be used in range of the factory where they were made. Yeah, this also apparently applies to the foot soldiers. So I guess the foot soldiers are robotic? I mean, like, that makes sense for the tanks and stuff. Well, even for the tanks and stuff, it doesn't really make sense. Oh, I thought I was going to get an S rank on Dark Conflict, but I was just short, apparently. So there you go. So yes, that was a very throwaway line that didn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, in order to keep the mechanics of Advance Wars in play, you kind of have to accept that in spite of this post-apocalyptic wasteland we're playing in, there are still functioning buildings and cities and electrics and factories and airports and all of that stuff. It's all the stuff you need for a game of Advance Wars, but it doesn't make a whole lot of a sense in a post-apocalyptic wasteland setting. Yes. Yeah, the joke is a little funnier in Days of Ruin, I'd say. Laughter is good for you in this post-apocalyptic wasteland setting. You know, when they said laughter was the best medicine, I don't think they meant it in situations like this. Haha, thank you, Brenner. Uh... Dr. Morris. This is where the script is deviating a little bit. Alright, so on to the next mission where we find out what Dr. Morris is planning. I suppose there's time to go ahead and do another mission. I'm planning on doing 2 missions per video. If I can, anyways. This mission. The best character in the game. Finally, at last! Fear Experiment in Days of Ruin, Observer of Fear in Dark Conflict. Yeah, Days of Ruin still my preference. Oh, come on, this is such basic knowledge. I guess this means it was Sturm who killed the dinosaurs. Of course, the dinosaurs didn't have enough Facebook friends. Oh, that's a joke that nobody is going to understand. Comes from a very, very old one-off joke about Mega Man Star Force. It's really weird. Anyways. Dinosaurs without the benefit of fireproof surface. And the line in Dark Conflict is not completely different, but fireproof surface. I don't know why that line's getting me. I should know this. I played this so very long ago, but I suppose I don't repeat these early missions that often. I had to repeat this one for an S rank, however. I remember that, but I guess I only read this one time. Yeah, I'm glad I started this playthrough. It's getting me to read everything again. Oh, does he make a joke about cockroaches in Days of Ruin? Wow, there's no joke about cockroaches. Interesting. We have become masters of science. Another Mega Man joke. I'm so sorry. The line is demons in Dark Conflict. That's very interesting, because that's, well, I'll save it. There's another character coming up that, is related to that word. Why did you bring it up, then? That was so weird. That whole scene was weird. Alright, so the people we're up against this time aren't exactly bandits. It's not the Beast this time. It's actually the best character. I should be looking at the CO dossiers, too, as a matter of fact. But I suppose I should wait a little while. So we've got gameplay. We can capture quite a number of properties on this first turn. I don't know if that infantry is in range of anything. So, taking care to avoid desync for one thing. It's a pretty wide range. I will hide in the ruins here with the tank. This tank. And I think I'm good there. You actually don't start with any buildings at all. How interesting. So, we started with buildings in the previous map, which meant that our income would actually make our funds go way, way up, but we don't have any this time. And now the best character in the game. You can tell who my favorite CO is, even though she's statistically the weakest in the game, which is very unfortunate. I must know how each soldier fights and how each one dies. That is so much more sinister in Days of Ruin. Well, there's still plenty of time to check up on all of the CO dossiers, but I will look at these for now. We go into mission and select... what do the terms say? Yeah, terms are probably just generic. Mission info, chart... which would be the unit list, I think? Status? No. Okay, so there's no CO dossiers in the missions themselves. No, nothing in options either. Alright, so I wasn't missing anything after all. That's fine. Kind of unfortunate. I guess they don't want to spoil anything. Right. So let's go and do, I think, that. And there's nothing in range of the artillery, so I have to do that. And I know on the next turn that infantry is going to finish capturing. So what I can do is take my artillery and just put it in range of the thing. Of course, I could just hit it with a recon now, but... I'll hit the one that's not capturing, because I don't know where that one is going to end up. Now, where will this tank go? That's the big question. I've started playing both at the same time because there's no deviation yet. So they're moving exactly as I want them to. Very nice. So, I want the mech to get into the fray so the infantry will continue capturing. Let's get rid of the... Bikes aren't that much stronger than infantry. They are a teensy bit stronger, I think. Oh, I've attacked with the infantry in Dark Conflict. That was a mistake. Okay, let's correct this. Take the bike in the Dark Conflict version, and you go here. Ah, that's unfortunately messed things up a little bit. Alright, we'll see how it goes. Do I have to play both of these at the same time now? I told you guys this was going to be a train wreck. Okay, they've officially deviated, so I'm switching over to just recording Days of Ruin on its own. Alright. I can take out this tank and... oh, and we can start building units now. Probably don't want to build anything quite yet. There's not really a great need for anything. Yeah, no building this turn. And I'll just play Dark Conflict while the enemy phase is happening. Ooh, how nice. Let's capture it here. Oh, and how kind of the recon to go into artillery range. And up we go. So still very much in tutorial mode, but if you want a perfect S rank, you have to kind of be careful not to build too much. I have a feeling I'm going to need artillery. So that's what I'm going to build. This recon is just sitting there. It's making it quite difficult to just get over there and destroy it. Which might hurt the speed score a little bit. Oh, that was probably not the best move. Got a feeling that the enemy is just going to wreck my artillery. Now that I've moved it into range. As much damage as it can get. Yeah, losing 4 HP isn't that big a deal. Alright, so I remember in this mission that there is dialogue as soon as you have the last enemy finished off. So yeah, I'm gonna finish up the Dark Conflict version of the map first, so I get that dialogue at the same time. So be right back. Alright, I'm back and ready to continue. That took a little bit longer in Dark Conflict, as you can see. The board is very much different. But, now that I'm able to actually advance, go ahead and finish that off, and this too. So there we go. He wants to spice things up a bit, huh? The world's mightiest tank. Press X to doubt. Because not only do we canonically win this, the new tank is very, interesting. A mega tank! It's actually named a mega tank in Dark Conflict, which is the same as the biggest tank in Dual Strike. That's very interesting. Very interesting that they... I guess they were keeping continuity. Of course, this mega tank is way cheaper. Well, how else do you destroy a tank? Like, this is exactly the same as the situation in Mission 5 of Dual Strike. You're dealing with big tanks with just little tanks. You just have to spam artillery and you win. Of course, I've made a mistake in the Dark Conflict version, as you can see. The medium tank is able to... It basically ambush spawns the artillery, which is funny. But before I move on, I haven't checked out the war room yet, and I am not going to forget it this time. So Lynn gave him her notes for the mission. Brenner drawing a tank when he's bored. Well, Lynn is the strategist and the intelligence specialist of this operation, so I think it makes sense to get all your strategies from her. Alright, so actually in Dark Conflict, the text feels very much it's being read off of a hastily scrawled together piece of paper, so it kind of makes sense. They spoiled the new unit that we're going to get to deal with the war tank, by the way. They added this in Days of Ruin. Pretend you thought of it yourself. Oopsie. Yes, let's keep that to ourselves. Alright, so I don't think there's any more dialogue, so, well, until the mission's over, of course, so let's switch over to Days of Ruin for the gameplay part. Yeah, I really am liking Days of Ruin's text so far over Dark Conflicts. I just hope it's not all, you know, I would hope that this playthrough is more than me just saying, oh, Days of Ruin, much more interesting than Dark Conflict. Alright, so I should talk about these tanks a little bit. We have two medium tanks. The tanks in Days of Ruin are a lot different from your standard Advance Wars tanks. Because in Advance Wars, normally you have a regular tank that costs 7,000, and the medium tank that costs 16,000. Oh, there's dialogue on turn 2. Oopsie. Be right back. Alright, so let's see what the text here is. I forgot about this. Your head hurts, Catalia. So yes, we're getting introduced to a new unit type. The anti-tank unit. It's an indirect with the range of an artillery, but can also counterattack direct combat units, which is very interesting. It's not something that's been seen in Advance Wars before. Unless you count the units in Game Boy Wars 3, but that's a whole different can of worms. So the anti-tank is, of course, made to combat tank units. But it is a bit costly at 11,000. I can only afford it in Dark Conflict right now. Or, never mind. The repairs made that impossible. So, moving on. Back to Days of Ruin. This is such a train wreck. Okay, so tanks in this game work a little bit differently from how you're probably used to tanks working. I'm so going to lose all of my units in this right now, unless they go after the capturing infantry. So instead of just 2 tanks, one costing 7,000 and the other costing 16,000, you have 3 different kinds of tanks. One that costs 7,000, another that costs 12,000, which is the medium tank, and one final tank, the war tank, which costs 16,000. And I can go ahead and do this. You can see that I did not take that much counterattack damage from the medium tank. I am the max level with this tank, but the thing is, like these 3 tanks, they actually work similar to the tanks in Super Famicom Wars, where there's one that costs 6,000, another that costs 12,000, and the final tank costs 16,000. And they all move in similar ways as well. The war tank only has 4 move, the medium tank is 5 move, so it's a bit of a throwback to Super Famicom Wars, kinda. I mean, you could interpret it that way, or you could not interpret it that way, that's up to you. So yes, these tanks are actually going to wreck me a little bit. I don't expect a good rank at all. I wonder if they will ignore my artillery if I decide to send a bike to that city. Alright. I unfortunately chose to spend my money on repairs, so it's going to be a little bit before I even think about bringing out the anti-tank. It looks like it's called an anti-tank in both versions, but I could get one right now. Okay. Let's go ahead then. So you can see that its range is one. Well, you can't see because I don't have the top screen showing, but its range is 1, 2, 3. So it can counterattack at direct combat range, which is a very new thing. I'm glad they did that too. It doesn't really get used in player versus player though, because it's expensive and moves very slowly. So it wasn't seen as being worth it at all. And you've also got to be careful not to lose too many units, because every time you lose a unit, your enemy is now gaining a level, so that's another reason to not let them get any kills if you can afford to. Can't really do much damage, so I have to kind of form a defensive wall here. I'll get a mech. So I'm expecting a very bad rank in the Days of Ruin version. But as you can see, the anti-tank counterattacked, and it did quite a bit of damage. That's not as much as you might have been expecting. We can finish off this medium tank and start doing a number on the war tank. Also, the war tank has a very low ammo count, so it's actually going to run out of ammo very quickly. Same kind of weaknesses as the Mega Tank from Dual Strike, which is why in Dark Conflict they probably gave it that name, because they were thinking of the Mega Tank. Alright, let's go ahead and start chipping away. This thing is a very big, like, wall of HP, but we can trap it like this. No, don't fire at it. Now it can't get out of there, and it's probably doomed. So now that the war tank has been dealt with, I'm going to finish up the Dark Conflict version of the map and get back to you momentarily. Day 13, what do you know? Be right back. Alright, I'm ready to continue, and you know what's funny about this map? You actually don't need an anti-tank if you want to beat this at all. You could just use artilleries. Like, a swarm of artilleries is probably way less expensive than anti-tanks. Anyways, with that out of the way, blow up these last couple of units, and we win. Yeah, we definitely owe it to Isabella for introducing us a unit that we technically didn't even really need to use. Alright, so mission 6 is 1, and both ranks were pretty bad, but as you can see, an S rank is not exactly as easy as it might seem. Very low power scores yet again. Anyways, that's that. Lynn just comes right out with the bad news. Now is not the time for a joke, Dr. Morris. No, I'm not laughing. I noticed that the terminology is a bit different in Dark Conflict. Dark Conflict likes to use fancier words. Probably because, you know, I've noticed that in some Japanese games they still use English terms. Like, I've lost my train of thought. I think, oh, the flowers. Maybe. Well, that escalated very quickly. Endofluorescence. Oh, and look at Dark Conflict. It's called Parasiticum fluoridus. That's probably going to make any doctors in the audience go crazy. So yes, allow me to introduce the Creeper, which in Dark Conflict is called the Floral Virus. I think I like that better because calling it the Creeper makes me think of Minecraft. Don't get too close to this kid, he's going to explode if you do. Acts like a parasite, but spreads like a virus. I'm pretty sure that's a redundant statement, because viruses and parasites would probably spread in the same manner, I guess. Of course, the last time I had to deal with parasites, it was in Metal Gear Solid 5, and that was... Oh, a different character started speaking. Wow, Lynn speaks here, but Will does not? Is Will going to talk? Yes, Lynn, please stop talking about it. Okay, so that scene actually had a more substantial change than I was expecting. Oh yeah, it's clear all right. Thank you, Lynn. Yes. You've learned that phrase and will spend the rest of the game repeating it over and over. Oh, and hey, here's one of those trial maps I was talking about. My big issue with a lot of these is that a lot of them are very tiny. A lot of them seem to just be phoned in. At least, well, most of them are not super huge like some of the war room maps in the previous games were, but they're not really substantial enough to just be their own thing, I guess. We're not going to do trial maps in this playthrough, but that is it for Mission 6, and in the next video we will take on Mission 7, and we will start getting introduced to some different enemy COs, because as you can see, the enemy buildings on this map are blue instead of black. That's interesting. Who will we run into next? See you later for that, everybody.